Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I am your host, Brian Scott. Today's episode is about New Earth, but in particular, it's about the New Earth now. That's the point of this podcast. I want to get an idea into your subconscious mind. I want to persuade you, if I can, if you give me the opportunity, that the New Earth is now, that it's happening now. I have dedicated several episodes to the idea of the New Earth, and you certainly have heard a lot about the New Earth in materials such as Dolores Cannon, who speaks of it, as well as the Law of One material that speaks about fourth density. This has been discussed by so many different authors and it has been a feature of many different channelings. But there is a flaw in our current thinking that was explained very clearly by Neville Goddard. You don't imagine this thing of the New Earth happening somewhere in the future. We're holding it off. We're pushing it away in our own minds, stuck in our own certain existence now, when in fact we should be imagining the New Earth as if it is happening now. As Neville Goddard would explain, we should be imagining from the New Earth, not about the New Earth. And I'm going to make an argument and convince you that you are experiencing the New Earth now. And I'm going to show you so that you can believe. Because I want to get to that part of you that believes. And you may be very fascinated or interested in this material, but you still may not believe, even though you are a starseed, even though you came to this planet to do this work, to change this planet. You are not definitely all the way there. I know many people I meet. I am not trying to impose or enforce any beliefs on you. Rather, I'm inviting you to entertain some new ideas. And if you're drawn to them, to live with them until it becomes more apparent whether they have the genuine ring of truth and can be accepted as integral parts of your life. Of course, the great scientists and mathematicians have often admitted that many of their discoveries have been the result of flashes of intuition coming from they knew not where. This faculty must be respected and used in our uncertain days when consciousness is breaking through into fields beyond what ordinary sense perception can attain. These flashes of insight I receive all the time about this new planet, and my reticular activating device is pulling me all the time to new material about it as well. Since the issues involved in the New Earth concern the very survival of our human race and of life on our planet, we are certainly justified in according the most serious consideration to the intuitions and communications received telepathically, channeled by sensitives all over the world, and emanating, it would appear, from higher intelligences. I know some of you do not believe that information. In our dramatic age, we must learn to reserve judgment and keep an open mind to unusual possibilities, however surprising and perhaps even unlikely they may appear at first sight. To open this podcast on the imminence of the New Earth, let me quote from a lecture from Anthony Brooke, entitled The Awakening of Man. Mr. Brooke states succinctly and lucidly the human situation in its universal context in relation to these higher intelligences. It is evident, beyond question and beyond doubt, for all who are not entirely blind to the signs of the times, that our planet is today undergoing an acute evolutionary crisis. To the peoples of our divided world, the choice would seem to be clear: to change our ways and unite together, or to perish like the civilizations of the past. Actually, it is not quite like that, because while the old and outworn civilization is doomed and dying, there is already evidence of something new and glorious. A new man, a new creation coming to birth. We are experiencing this as a total healing, the welding into oneness of our divided and tortured body of humanity. There is, however, a need first to view our condition in its cosmic context, because we have entered into what may come to be known as the cosmic age, the space age, and I would like to offer you my understanding of what this means. We each form a part of the universe of living energy, an immense unified field of living, pulsating energy. We are to speak of God, then God must comprise the totality of this universal life energy and must itself be each and all of the manifestations within the universe in their countless forms, visible and invisible, and infinitely more besides which the human mind cannot possibly comprehend. The living wholeness of being is infused in its every part with a loving and purposeful intelligence and moves consistently towards maintaining itself in order, harmony, and balance, towards maintaining its oneness and perfection. It follows that man's mind is designed to be attuned and to keep attuned to this consciousness of oneness, of wholeness, of perfect being, and to experience this in conditions reflected in the environment, which would thus become, in metaphorical language, heaven upon earth. Yet we know that throughout recorded history, the very opposite has been the condition most generally experienced on earth. In the place of wholeness, perfection, order, and harmony, we have tended in ourselves and in our world to experience conditions of division, imperfection, confusion, and conflict, which our newspapers, television, and radio daily bring to our attention. In the urgency of the present moment, no good purpose is served by debating the reasons associated with man's inbuilt power of free will, why humanity throughout history has clung to an apparently self-imposed course of suffering, conflict, and destruction. The important thing now for us to realize and to accept is that energies are at hand, as indeed they have always been at hand, to help us to move out of this condition, and we cannot afford any longer to ignore them. The barriers in man's mind are in fact today giving way to powerfully creative and uplifting energies which are flooding into his consciousness to provide him individually and collectively with an unparalleled opportunity to be instrumental in bringing new life to the planet, a new civilization based upon enduring values of love, truth, joy, peace, and the ideal of service to his fellow human beings and to other life streams which contribute to and support the life of our planet. These values have been proclaimed to man by wise ones down the ages, and now man is required to incarnate and express them ever more consistently in his daily living if he is to enjoy any further existence upon earth. Many are the ways that are open to man to play his part in the creative process, and these energies themselves, provided he opens himself to them, are the enabling source to provide him with the strength to be increasingly effective to this end. To summarize, 1. We are being invited to accept what for many of us is a new fact, a new truth, that there are superior forms of intelligent life in the universe which are making contact with us by various means and in various ways. 2. This intelligent life operating according to the universal law and in the service of the one supreme universal power is working to implement a plan for peace and brotherhood throughout the universe, which of course includes our planet. The people and governments of the world can choose, individually and collectively, either to continue to strive towards a solution of the problems of the world as if our planet were on isolated units, or we may enlarge our capacity to solve all our problems by giving recognition to and by cooperating with this higher wisdom and intelligence which is being made available to us. 4. We have this free choice, but higher intelligence is informing us in telepathic communications that we shall not in fact be able to solve the many difficulties we are continuing to create for ourselves without coming to think and live in a completely new way, and without establishing an effective link directly or indirectly with the higher intelligence which governs the entire universe. We will then be given every assistance to solve our problems and to live a fully creative life in peace and brotherhood on Earth, and in harmony also with life throughout the universe. 5. In cooperation with their governments, the people of the world have a vital role to play in bringing about a universal civilization, a true brotherhood of man upon Earth. Most of us will surely agree that if this picture is accurate, it offers grounds for genuine optimism. It is not theoretical talk about what happens in the far distant future. On the contrary, all the great teachers and sensitives urge us to realize that something is really happening now. It is happening inevitably. The law of one indicates that this is inevitable. As the barriers between the eternal and temporal planes are melted, we are witnessing the impinging of the eternal world into our plane of time. The events of which we speak represent the intersection of the timeless with time. The veils separating the levels of consciousness are growing very thin. The truth is that in a most profound sense, the new earth is already here, waiting for us to bring it into manifestation by lifting and opening our hearts and awareness and allowing the timeless to be earthed. It is thus dependent on us when and where the new earth manifests. But the moment we learn to open ourselves and invoke them, the new earth energies begin to flow. Thus, man's understanding, acceptance, and creative channeling is an essential factor. Just as we have noted, the higher worlds are to be found wherever we can direct our attention to them, we must also recognize that the new earth already exists. It only remains for us to determine how and where it shall assume concrete form. As Brooke claims, there appears to be a clear intention on the part of the higher intelligences to influence man and cooperate with him wherever and whenever he offers them the opportunity. We must, however, not forget the fact that by divine dispensation, we have been given free will. Free will is the most important thing to consider in the evolution of the new earth. We have free will. Nothing is set in stone. It is our responsibility to do this. Cooperation, therefore, can never be forced by these higher intelligences, nor will it occur if we simply remain passive and wait for the new earth. Disaster may be allowed to strike us as a salutary lesson designed to waken us, but the true inner cooperation must await our invitation. We must invite this intelligence to act with us. It can only come if man calls for it in our inner freedom. This naturally he will never do until he accepts the reality of these higher worlds. Hence the importance in studying the findings of those who can research into the spiritual world. The inner freedom that I just stressed is guaranteed by the very nature of the telepathic contact, which speaks as the still small voice within the mind or in the impulse to action in the heart. Though the source is all-powerful, the method is delicate and gentle. Unless we can learn to still our chattering minds, we shall never hear the guidance. A spiritual being will not appear outside of us and command us, ever. It will speak telepathically within our thoughts, as if we had ourselves answered the question we posed. In short, there is no constraint or compulsion. Again, we have total freedom of choice to listen or ignore the intimation that apparently we offer ourselves. It is not even necessary that we know its higher source. Whatever that may be, we are continually being subtly influenced in a constructive way. Every day just a little bit more, for we each have our invisible guides as well as our higher self. and the inner mental contact afforded by these principles is clearly the doorway to true spiritual experience, lifting us beyond the dangers of deception, including the deception that arises through too great a preoccupation with psychic phenomena. There are many qualitative degrees in the blending of minds. Those with developed intuition do really meet and converse in fullest consciousness with the beings of the spiritual worlds. Most of us, by studying rational processes, will arrive first at a recognition of the reality of these invisible forces of consciousness. Then we will be prepared to accept their influence and guidance. In doing so, we will implicitly acknowledge that creative intelligence is everywhere at work. And we can accept as well the concept of living ideas, weaving through the supersensible planes and desiring to be earthed through human thinking. In this way, we will begin to awaken to a constant and subtle penetration of our consciousness, almost like a falling dew or dropping like the gentle rain from heaven. Every day, just a little bit more. That's what's happening now. We must, however, admit that we are always personally responsible for what we give out. It is a mistaken danger to say, in effect, that something was given us as a higher truth, but that we disclaim responsibility for it. In ordinary life, man strives to solve his problems by proudly relying on his self-sufficiency. In the new earth, this self-sufficiency must be augmented by a new cooperation in which a man or woman is still the fully responsible agent, yet knows that they are channeling spiritual powers and accepting a measure of guidance. Only in this manner can we learn to be companions and co-creators with God, the goal of our developing sense of individuality. As Christ said to his disciples, "Hitherto I have called you servants, from now on I shall call you friends." The new flowering involves constant surrender of self-will, an ever-renewed dedication. But since freedom must always be respected, we ourselves, as I said before, must send up the invitation to our higher self to enter the heart and guide our lives every day, with every decision and every bit of information that we come into contact with. The new earth is slowly forming before our eyes, and so is the old earth. And you can choose every single day, every single second, which earth you choose to be a part of. For when you die, you will go into the same energies that you came. So if you don't see it now, you'll see it in the future, and it's happening now, and that's the point that I'm trying to convince you of. What it amounts to is a planting of the soul in the soil of the spirit so that it may flower into new creativity, into new earth. Rooted only in our lower self and personality, on the other hand, we are like a thing adrift. When we just stick with our egos, we do not have a destination to go. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can ye except ye abide in me. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. John 15:4-5. Here's the real new birth that must come about in each soul through the creative flow of the higher self. Here is the coming of the new age. Uprooted, unplanted, man may drift and lose power of initiative, but once rooted and grounded in love, he will tap new creativity. The great initiates have always demonstrated great powers of initiative, bringing spiritual power down into the practical and daily life. Once we discern the rootlessness of our day, we can see how the psyche in its loneliness, despair, and loss of all sense of meaning must often turn its inner drives into violence and cruelty, hate, and negativity. So many people are on their phones or in their social media, sitting at home alone. And these inner drives of violence, cruelty, and negativity come out. We see it on TV. We see it in the news. It is a souring of human nature which has lost touch with the springs of life. To continue this analogy, it is as if the plant of the soul is being fed only with artificial fertilizers and sprayed with poisons. What it needs instead is to be set again in living humus and reunited with the cycle of life. The flow of new earth energies must inevitably draw kindred souls into new groupings, the focal points of a new society, where the living spirit floods the consciousness. Values cannot but change, and we shall wake up to the significance of things we have hitherto taken for granted. Thus, certain practices that we now accept in our present day will simply fall away and fade out of new earth culture as it begins to coalesce. Let's take a single example. Racism. If you see yourself in everyone else and love flows through you, how can you hold someone to a lower level because of the color of their skin? We will rise up against that. It's natural if it's happening now. It's a part of our own subconscious awakening. Since the new earth involves a fundamental transformation in the very nature of humans, we may expect killing and violence, so prevalent today, to wane. Gandhi's vision of non-violence will become an ever greater reality, and in the end, war will be universally recognized as insanity. In the new earth, the basic virtues of tolerance, honesty, respect for truth, cooperation, and compassion will become ever more manifest, while the very capacity to deceive another, to bear false witness, steal, or murder will be eradicated from the patterns of human behavior. Once we are awakened to the Akashic record and telepathically able to read other people's minds, we will know immediately if they're telling the truth, and those things will be eradicated. I'm not talking about a naive optimism, pious hopes, or airy idealism. Certainly it is idealistic, yet at the same time it is practicable and intensely relevant to modern daily life. The new earth is not a social plan based on intellectual concepts. It is a living impulse, which by its very nature carries transforming power. And once it begins to touch the soul, a person will inevitably begin to change. And the impulse will spread rapidly, drawing more and more people into its field of influence, for it is nothing less than a mystical event of which we are all the potential instruments. The wind of the Spirit blows through us. It transcends and subsumes the cynicism that might point out the cruelty and violence so characteristic of our modern day. Sure, someone's going to be sitting next to you and say, "Oh, look at that mass shooting over there," or that robbery at Walgreens. We are talking about a new society which is now emerging through a metamorphosis of the old. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. The present situation is well summarized in a quote from a lecture by David Spangler, author of an incredible book called Revelation, the Birth of a New Age. A new world is taking birth, he says. This world already exists, and in a sense, its energies are precipitating out into form. People throughout the world are beginning to attune to this energy, because in the higher consciousness, they are already a part of that world. They are citizens of it, though they may not know it consciously. Through the power of their lives, in their individual and collective demonstration, they provide precipitation points. As this new world increases in vitality, the world that has vitalized form up to this point will decrease in vitality and will, in a manner of speaking, fade away. This transition between two worlds could be smooth or could be chaotic, according to the will of the individuals involved. As far as the energies of the new world are concerned, the change has already taken place, and there was no destruction. There was only the opportunity to join with a divine energy to become a co-creator of a new planet. This path to the new earth is an adventure into the unknown, which is At the same time, a return to the source, with the certainty that we all have loving and invisible guides to help us overcome difficulties and trials along the way. It involves a conscious building of soul qualities. This in turn entails a deliberate and creative deed, for we recognize that when we sound a quality in the soul, it resounds or reverberates up onto higher planes. Just as a note struck on the piano evokes a resonance on higher octaves, so we may expect a response to that which is sounded in our souls. We may see then that the spiritual worlds are in a sense composed of living qualities and attributes which are also being. Thus we can grasp the courage is an attribute of the sphere of Mars, joviality of Jupiter, steadfastness of Saturn. In meditation, we leave our everyday consciousness and enter into absolute tranquility. At this moment, we are poised in the eternal now, at the intersection of the timeless with time. Regret for the past or anxiety about the future is simply non-existent. The negative emotions of the lower self are for this precious timeless moment in total abeyance, and the soul can consciously sound the qualities which it discerns the higher self to possess. They are basically peace and tranquility, love, courage, joy, and gentleness. By sounding them, we evoke the higher response and the character is strengthened. When we plunge back into daily life, we will be suffused and colored by those positive qualities as if the soul had been dipped into a dye. In sum, then we can indeed take courage. It is a highly significant phrase. To touch the plane of attributes and qualities is truly a creative act. Take joy. Take love. Take peace. Take all of it. It is your birthright, your heritage. You are an ambassador of the divine, and as an ambassador of the divine, as an agent of unconditional love, it is our assignment and task to re-enter life with positive thinking for active transformation of our environments. Thus, we each can contribute to the birth of the new earth. Each human being in each group is potentially a vortex point through which spiritual quality can flood. Arithmetic is irrelevant here. A small breach in a dam can lead to a flood. A small group can channel energies which once released will take their own course, since they are imbued with intelligence, life, and love. Our task is to dedicate ourselves as channels to invoke the higher energies and with praise to give thanks. Then we must go forward into the new day with joy and courage. Messages and communications received by sensitives, as recorded, for example, in the book Gildas Communicates by Ruth White and Mary Swanson, speak of inevitable changes as these new energies begin to flow. These changes would obviously imply a radical change in consciousness. Many people would begin to see with fourth or fifth dimensional vision. Others, fettered to a materialistic perspective, might feel they were going mad. And there might be changes in the outer world as well, in climate, even geological disturbances. This might be construed by some as the retribution to be visited upon man for his treatment of the living earth. Yet, the teachers from the world of spirit all urge us to have no fear. Indeed, fear not is always the first injunction of the spiritual visitant. Disaster and calamity may serve a purpose for the higher worlds to awaken man to the evil of his ways. We may feel confident that the more difficult outer conditions become, the closer and more certain will be the individual protection and assistance of our invisible guides. New dimensions of knowledge are being opened up, and the New Age vision will clarify and crystallize as living ideas work to counter the collapse of antiquated forms. Of course, it is quite impossible in so brief a podcast as this to do justice to what is now rapidly emerging, or in Spangler's phrase, precipitating. Suffice it to say at this point that it is occurring on an even broader scale, in centers and communes, in meditations and healing groups, in conferences and lectures, in yoga teaching and courses and activities offered by the great schools of esoteric knowledge, in international contacts, in the striving of individuals for higher knowledge, in books and publications, and the creative and performing arts. Everywhere, the vast vista of the ageless wisdom unfolds. It is indeed to be seen as one of the truly significant phenomena in the intellectual climate of our world. In the light of this picture, we might consider what the so-called rebellion of youth really means. In doing so, we must remember that there is no death without a rebirth, and that human society is like every new growth in nature, involving first a breaking down of matter into sheer formlessness or chaos, as in the seed. Chaos or formlessness is the necessary precursor to a new birth on a higher level. We must now apply this principle to what we are witnessing about us, the disturbance of an entire generation, many rejecting all old forms, opting out of accepted standards, experimenting with previously forbidden directions, deliberately breaking sacrosanct taboos, youth in revolt in quest for what? If our earlier premise is true, many of these souls chose to descend into the maelstrom of world affairs so as to be at their full maturity at the time of the coming spiritual crisis. Many are no doubt advanced and mature souls, star seeds, higher density beings who chose the task of leading the new society into social forms consonant with spirit. They came with the task, but the nature of life on earth is such that we forget wholly the wider vision we witnessed from the heavenly planes before the descent into birth. What then do these old souls incarnate as young people find? They're confronted with gross materialism, values based on greed and selfishness and aggression, a rejection of love, a scramble for possession of things and power, and quite naturally, they revolt because no parent or mentor has reminded them that there exists a wholly different perspective which affords a view of man as a spiritual being, an ambassador of God, given responsibility for the stewardship of this lovely planet, enjoying the possibility of cooperation with the power of light and love, in starting to build a new order on earth. Without such perspective, it is not surprising that many are adrift and lost. If this is indeed the sole condition of many of the younger generation, we may expect an instant response when the spiritual worldview is rendered accessible to them. All they need is to be reminded. What I find interesting is that many coming from the service to self side that want this new earth to stop, that are actively working to try to stop this new earth, they appeal to these obviously spiritually minded people with conspiracies and disinformation. They don't say, oh, don't be spiritual. They say, be spiritual. And they give them something ridiculous to be spiritual about. They were pulling them along a path of disinformation that takes them away from the new earth. Bewildered, as many now are, experimenting blindly with drugs, for example, in their quest to escape from the cage of self, these young people will, in a sudden flash, recollect and remember the task they undertook as starseeds and the vistas they witnessed before they entered their present incarnation. Then when spiritual change begins, when the powers of light descend, these transformative people, already freed from all binding ties of convention, will be in a position to rise to the call of follow me. They will know and understand, for this they came. Then, all that now seems negative may turn into positive creation, and above and beyond our present social structure, a new society will begin to form, based truly on love and immediate contact with the divine sources of guidance. The prospect is truly exhilarating and exciting. With all its apparent darkness and confusion, this is truly an age of joy. And Schiller's Hymn to Joy, echoed in Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, should indeed be its anthem, along with Blake's Jerusalem. Never before has man lived through an age so pregnant with promise. And we must acknowledge that many of the young in our time are souls who have chosen to be involved with the greatest surge forward in spiritual evolution that the human race has ever experienced. Such are the days in which we live, and they are bright with the most supreme hope ever offered to struggling and troubled man. Awake, awake, the world is young for all its weary years of thought. The starkest fights will be fought, the most surprising songs to be sung. James Elroy Flecker. William Blake, who really wrote less for his own time than for ours, sounded the apocalyptic clarion call, "Rise up, young men of the new age." Neville Goddard always referred to William Blake as someone with vision. He could see the need for those to rise up in this new age. This is, of course, high-sounding and idealistic and cliché. Easily said. Yet in a world of as much darkness and conflict as ours, set apparently on a course of collective suicide through unbalanced extremism, it may well be worthwhile making the last cast of banking all on a worldview which, if true, offers an optimistic alternative at this turning point in human affairs. We have so little to lose and eternity to gain. Of course, the personal and social difficulties confronting us seem huge and daunting. We live in an apocalyptic age, and it can be exciting, but not particularly comfortable, not conducive to a desire for either psychological or material security. But once we grasp the tremendous possibilities that extend all the way down into practical life, we can face all trials and tribulations, and we can do so with zest for members of a resistance movement, awaiting an invasion for which warning has already been sounded. If many of our young have dropped out of our acquisitive society, it is perhaps an unconscious prelude to a step forwards into a new one, of which courage and love and joy are the basic ingredients. Once heart and mind are kindled with the fire of the living Spirit. We must remember that this is a call to the young in heart, for we are all young. However many years you have lived, for the soul within us is immortal and ageless. And so I call to that young part of you. The future belongs to the young. It is a young and new world, which is now under process of development, and it is the young who must create it. But it is also a world of truth and courage and justice, lofty aspirations and straightforward fulfillment, which we seek to create. Our ideal is a new birth of humanity into the Spirit. Our life must be a spiritually inspired effort to create a body of action for the great new birth and creation. Our ideal is not the spirituality that withdraws from life, but the conquest of life by the power of the Spirit. It is to accept the world as an effort of manifestation of the divine, but also to transform humanity by a greater effort of manifestation than has yet been accomplished, one in which the veil between man and God shall be removed. The divine manhood of which we are capable shall come to birth, and our life shall be remolded in the truth and the light and the power of the Spirit of love and light. It is the young who are free in mind and heart, and we must find this youth within us to accept a complete truth and labor for a greater ideal. We must be men and women who will dedicate ourselves not to the past or the present, but to the future. We must consecrate our lives to exceed our lower selves to the realization of God in ourselves and in all human beings, into a wholehearted labor for the nation and for humanity. This ideal can be as yet only a little seed, and the life that embodies it a small nucleus, but it is our fixed hope that the seed will grow into a tree, and the nucleus by the heart of an ever-extending formation. It is with a confident trust in the Spirit that inspires us that we take our place among the standard bearers of the new earth that is struggling to be born. You create your reality. You're creating a reality every second. You can create a reality just for yourself, but we must move beyond and be of service to this planet. So we must create with this new power that we have gained. We must create a new earth. There are places that you can see these transformations happening in the world now. There are things that are happening. So let me give you a list of ideas. Are you feeling more than triggered? As you become more sensitive, your awareness starts to expand through your heightened senses. And this allows a process of illumination to highlight things that are no longer resonating with you at a higher scale. Do you notice that people are more triggered? Well, this is a sign of the new earth. It's obvious. This, for some, can seem like an emotional roller coaster, and others, the unfoldment of the growing pains occurs when you are shifting out of previous timelines into your newfound reality of 5D and new earth. Have you had issues and old patterns that you thought were resolved start to resurface? So the new earth energy, when your awareness expands and the triggers flow, after a while you begin to realize that certain people are embodying certain templates that have been old wounding patterns for you to heal once and for all. So sometimes you think you've resolved something, but you really haven't. These things come faster at you than before. This happens because going into new earth living, you are guided to let go of past baggage that weighs your energy down into the lower frequencies. You can't have that stuff in the new earth. Accept, forgive, integrate, heal, let go, purge, rest, and transcend. You can see, for instance, the light about how the future will unfold. And a sign that the new earth is with you is that you're not dominated by fear. You're not dominated with thoughts of hatred and violence. Instead, you see oneness and love and connectedness and truth and peace. That means you're in the new earth. Have you had thoughts about oneness and love and connectedness? Obviously, right now, there are many people freaking out, thinking that the world is coming to an end, talking about the book of Revelation. They're fearful of the unknown and seeing things at face value, growing negative thoughts and feeling lost. You, on the other hand, as an agent of the divine, a creator of the new earth, see things from a different perspective. Instead of feeling like things are crumbling away to a horrible end, you see the light at the end of the tunnel into a brand new beginning, breaking free from the old paradigm and the old way of being, to now manifest heaven on earth, a new dawn, a new day, a new cellular way. You may even be more positive and centered as you go with the flow, adapting to the changes that are unfolding. You probably feel guided to celebrate, even if you aren't sure what's coming next. You follow your intuition over what other people want you to believe. Another sign that you're in the new earth, you're sleeping for longer periods. You may be getting tired or drained more than usual, and that's because your body's going through massive DNA upgrades and deep cellular healing, clearing of ancestral patterns and purging and awakening of your abilities and gifts, especially for your new earth reality. Your body needs time to rest and reboot with an upgraded energy body, since it's the densest part of your being. So it's a sign that you're in the new earth. If you're going through periods where you're tired or drained more than normal, check out my episode on upgrading your DNA in the new earth. Another sign is you're experiencing synchronicities. You start to remember there are no coincidences, and through divine timing, the universe can communicate with you and you with the universe. Another sign the new earth is here is that you're manifesting your desires more easily. I know that you've been aware of manifesting longer than you think, all the way back to your childhood. And maybe you tried to manifest things and they would show up years later. But now they happen faster and faster. I make this argument in my book, The Reality Revolution, and that proves to me that the new earth's happening now. It's happening due to the purging and letting go of family karma and old patterns and mental energy blocks that keep you from attaining your manifestations. You're being brought through a process of cleansing, letting go of old programming that stems all the way back to your family bloodlines. Another proof that you're in the new earth is your eating habits suddenly change. You may find yourself eating less meat and processed products and eating more organic foods and eating things that are in alignment with your new vibration. Another sign that you're in the new earth energy is that you are receiving more meaningful types of dreams. During the healing process of purging out lower vibrations and mental patterning, you begin to make room for peaceful dreams to enter, and your dreams suddenly change. Your inner temple is coming into balance, as in harmonious union. This also awakens abilities to have prophetic dreams, astral projection, connecting with the spirit teams, piercing through the veil of illusion. Another place to see evidence of the new earth now is a desiring for truth. Even if it shakes up your belief system, for some reason you need to know the truth and you're seeking it out. You've turned on the reticular activating device for truth. You're able to understand fear and are able to alchemicalize it. In the past, you had something to be fearful for, and you immediately felt into that fear and projected it out into your future. Now you see it, you recognize it, you change it. Another proof is a sensing of thinning of dimensions. I hear about this all the time. People are sensing other dimensions much easier. It goes hand in hand with becoming more sensitive. With the increase of light in your life, you start to see out of the corner of your eye energies, orbs, colors, and shapes that you've not noticed were there before this transition. Some people see orbs while others sometimes sense a particular energy around them. It's really tapping into your other senses, not just the 5 that are a part of your new earth body. Another proof is if you've experienced time loops and glitches. Sometimes time seems to take a very long time, or it loops and you seem to repeat something. Have you ever woken up and it's the previous day? I've had that happen once. Glitches, all kinds of weird things happening in your reality start to occur. This happens as you start to become dominant in activating timelines, which causes perceptual glitches around you. We start veering away from linear calendar systems, instead start embracing going with the flow in the divine feminine dynamics of being that are a part of the new earth, like having a much better time with the guidance of going by the moon cycles and phases throughout the year. The feeling of deja vu hits you very often. You find yourself experiencing unfamiliar things. For instance, you place your car keys in a particular spot, but one day you find that they're not there. You're distancing yourself from friends and family that don't understand you. You find that in the past you might have interacted with people that are of the old earth energy of anger and hatred, and now it's almost too much for you to take, and you send them love, but you find yourself moving away from those energies. This is the great divide as we begin shifting into our new earth reality timelines. As we move to higher vibrations, we tend to lose those at the lower ones. Don't worry, they're going to end up moving up in vibration at a different pace, and we'll eventually see them soon. But do not worry about this. Your family and friends will still be there. It's just that you will connect with others more in alignment with your new vibrational energy. Another proof that your new earth is happening now is energy shifts. I see it every day. I read about it every day. People are saying they're going through big energy shifts. These are normal, not a reason to worry. Another proof of the new earth happening now is people are hearing high-pitched frequencies. A lot of times when waking up or at certain times, they hear these high-pitched sounds and frequencies. They think that something's wrong with their hearing, but the doctor says that it's not. They can be very loud in one particular ear at times. These sounds may be associated with the rising frequencies of the earth as your body is assimilating to these frequencies. That's why we see spikes with the Schumann resonance. This occurs when you are in alignment with your higher self. Another proof that you're in the new earth now is a sudden desire to go home, a home that you've never been to. You find yourself gazing at the stars and wondering which star system is or could be the planet of your origin, and this is for you. Some people may feel an affinity to the Pleiades or Lyra or Arcturus, while others feel like they're at home on Earth. Others may feel like the Earth is like a different state or country. These feelings that you're having is an awareness of who you are as a soul and an entrance into this new Earth energy. Another proof is that you're beginning to experience metaphysical abilities that you previously didn't remember having. I am hearing from people all the time that are starting to perceive absolutely new, wonderful abilities, the ability to astral project, the ability to shrink themselves, to enter into remote viewing, to hear people's thoughts. People are becoming telepathic. They're bilocating, clairaudience, clairvoyance. All of these things have been reported to me, and it's a proof that we're in the new earth now. I'm getting so much communication on this. It is proof that we're in it now. And then if you notice that you're way more connected to Mother Nature than before, this is a big sign that you are in the new earth now. And as you start embodying your sensitivity and take an interest in nature, you begin to rekindle your bond with the great Mother Earth. As she nurtures your mind, body, and soul, she will connect you with and strengthen her communication with you. Check out my episode on a message from the trees, when I had the wonderful opportunity to actually communicate with the trees and felt on a soul level that I was truly communicating with them, and it wasn't a flight of fancy. It was very powerful. This connection is available to all of us. Another is that you're starting to see entities and spirits around you that you normally wouldn't see. You might see goblins. You might see ghosts. This new sight is a part of the new earth and is nothing to be afraid of. The new earth is teeming with way more life than you had before. You can sense the life in every object. If that is you, if you hear the voice of the rock next to you, then you are so clearly entering in to the new earth now. And that's the point I want to make. For the new earth to happen, we must enter into it now. We must manifest it now. So when you go to sleep tonight, you are sleeping in the new earth. We're using the Neville Goddard idea. And I'm proving to you, if you don't believe me, you are experiencing it through one of those things. If you've had one of the things I just listed, then that means that you're in this new earth energy. Keep on going. Become aware of your thoughts. Change your mindset. Renounce the old earth beliefs that are limiting you. Become aware of the illusion around you and move into these higher realms of existence that you are being invited to join. You're bringing and finding gifts. You're speaking your truth. You're awakening. You're feeling more joy, less apathy. You're actively manifesting. You're merging with this new earth reality. You can see life's illusions. You may feel a frustration with the failing systems. That's because you remember the perfection that you're from. You are ascending, and it's happening now. And I want you not just to imagine yourself in the new earth, but imagine the whole earth. Be the agent that creates this new earth. It is up to you. I've been sent here to tell you that. No one else can do it. Don't depend on anybody else to start the process. It is entirely dependent on you to create the new earth now. And it's happening, and it's increasing every day, just a little bit more. And we need you to create it. So please tell me, what are you doing to actively co-create the new earth right now? The new earth is now. Embrace it. Become a part of it. It is your mission on this planet. You can find all episodes of The Reality Revolution at therealityrevolution.com. I love you so much. I'm sending love and light to everyone listening to this, hoping and praying and knowing that you're transforming, and you're transforming those around you, and those that you're transforming are also going out and transforming them around you, spreading a virus of love, as you are a secret agent of unconditional love on this planet. I love you so much. Welcome to the Reality Revolution.